Hi there, I'm Dre, the host and founder of the Dragon Network. On this week's video, I would actually like to talk about natural language processing, which sometimes is referred to as neural language processing, and how it's actually being incorporated into the health IT space. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Natural language processing, or NLP, uses artificial intelligence programming to help systems understand natural language. So NLP systems are going to focus their attention on both spoken and written forms. So in the healthcare space, this is things like voice to text, ambient listening, as well as tagging and categorizing information inside of free text written notes. So NLP is able to process data from multiple different sources. In the healthcare space, some of the sources that it can get data from would include, of course, the EHR, some of your ancillary programs. It can also grab it from those ambient listening devices, social media, and I'll talk a little bit how that would factor into the health space further on in the video, things like that. So it can grab information from multiple different places and it's going to collate it all in a single place within that NLP program on your AI platform. So what it does as it's going through the data is it's going to classify the data, it's going to tag it, and then it's going to categorize it. So it can actually pick out pieces of that free text or pieces of that voice and utilize that sort of understanding what the context is around it. So it is programmed for context, and that's really important to set up correctly in the healthcare space. So you don't want it to just be listening for everything in the world or to just be scanning as if it was a regular conversation everywhere. It really needs to understand that the information it's going to be processing is in a medical context. So it's going to take that, it's going to tag it, and then it's going to categorize it. So it can categorize the information and place it in different places. It can also categorize entire notes to organize them within systems. Natural language processing is something that is just starting to come into its own, if you will, but it has actually been around for about 70 years. It was introduced back in the 1950s, and at that time was used for projects to do things such as translating information from Russian to English. So how can we leverage NLP within the healthcare space? So there's several different places, and I've sort of alluded to some of them earlier in this video, but really a couple of them that are big standouts are those voice interaction systems. So if you look at the University of Colorado Health, they have an application that leverages NLP and AI called Livy or Levy. I'm actually not sure how to say it. And that system can use text or spoken commands, leveraging the Alexa system, to answer common questions that patients may have about the UC Health system. So the next one is speech to text technology. So this was introduced initially to look at dictation and having more real-time dictation instead of having to rely exclusively on transcriptionists listening to the dictation and having it be transcribed out. Providers can now dictate directly into an NLP system and have it translate as they're going so that they can grab any corrections and do those in real time. So the most popular system that is in place within the North American health IT sector is Dragon by Nuance, and Nuance was actually just recently purchased by Microsoft. Voice to text dictation and voice to text ambient listening are absolutely going to play a bigger role as we go forward. One of the other things that people don't often think of NLP being used for is to enhance EHR usability. If you have an NLP program running in the background that's connected to your EHR, it can go through large volumes of information that's present within the EHR, and it can tag and summarize and categorize information for presentation on a certain screen. So how this would be helpful is if you consider physicians or caregivers who are looking through historical information on a chart and they're having to flip through multiple pages, multiple screens, multiple areas to actually gather that information. An NLP program can look at the context that you're currently presenting to in the hospital, and if everything works according to plan, it can summarize the relevant data and present things from a mass amount of historical and supplementary data that it is processing through that AI engine. So you can imagine with these in place, they can save a ton of time with trying to review charts. So the last one that I'll quickly mention is actually predictive technologies. So this is where things like social media can come into play. So with NLP, some studies that are going on right now are looking at social media posts in the context of mental health. So individuals tend to have patterns when they post to their social media, depending on their mental state, depending on their behaviors, and depending on the activities that they normally do. So NLP can process posts and process information that's publicly shared over time to see if there's any pattern changes to help predict if something is different. For example, there have been some NLP studies that are being worked on that are looking at the frequency and type of posts that would occur by individuals prior to a suicidal ideation or prior to a self-harm event. And if they can categorize enough of these over time and again put them into significant sort of AI platforms, then you can start to predict future events that haven't occurred yet to see if there's interventions that can happen. So things like that are actually also leveraged with NLP. So NLP has tons of possibility in that space as well. So what are some of the challenges with NLP? Well, first of all, getting that context correct. So as you can imagine, especially with the healthcare environment, context is incredibly important. So the way that individuals and care providers will speak in a healthcare space is very different than they would speak in a regular conversation that they're having at home or perhaps on the street. So the terms are different. There's a lot of Latin that's thrown in there. Just the way that language is spoken is different. The way dictation has occurred in the past hasn't really lent itself to natural speech, so that's a transition that needs to occur. But that really context understanding is one of the challenges that we're seeing. The other challenge is that NLP programs are typically looking for sentences or statements. They're not looking for one-off words because they do need to understand the context and they're trying to put it in a framework so they can tag and categorize that information. There may be some struggles because of that with cut-paste technology or with some of the templates that we have in the EHRs, because those templates are really meant to have structured sentences sort of pre-formed where someone would just add in the extra words. So understanding sort of how that all factors in is a big area that they're focused on right now. Another one is our use of acronyms. I'm not sure about other industries, but I do know that in the healthcare industry, we are absolutely in love with acronyms. We use them for everything. If you look at the acronym STI, I know over the course of my career, I've seen that particular acronym used for several different things. It can be soft tissue injury. It also has sometimes been used for sexually transmitted infection, and there's a few other ones that are like that, where NLP programs might get kind of confused when you're looking through it and incorporating those acronyms into things. And last but not least, we need some more maturity in the NLP space with respect to linguistic variations. The way individuals speak between different regions of the country or within different countries, if we're looking at a larger scale NLP program, needs to be factored into the NLP programming, and there's a lot more maturity that needs to happen there. So that's all I have for today's video. I hope this quick discussion on NLP was helpful. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done that already so you're notified the next time I post something. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you again soon.